Life all depends upon how you see it. No matter what your circumstances, who you are, where you go, how little you have, or how rich you might be, in this life, the greatest treasure we own is our treasure of perspective.
It suddenly got really cold. I thought I would give you an update on my eyes after my operation. I went back to the hospital for a checkup last week. It was pretty scary. I was just hoping so much that they would say it's fine and everything's happy, well done, you can go home and everything's working as it should. Obviously that hasn't been my experience for a long time, so I was pretty nervous. Didn't help that they have two ways of measuring your eye pressure, and the first one, which is used by the nurses, said that it was still really high. So that freaked me out. Immediately I was just thinking, it hasn't worked, it's gone wrong, why do you have to do this to me, life? Just throw me a rope, please, just a little rope. Had to spend a good hour in the waiting room after that, twiddling my thumbs and tapping my feet and trying not to cry, even though I really wanted to, I'm not gonna lie. I went into my consultant and he measured the pressure again, and it was half of what had come up on the nurse's device, which incidentally looks like a little pen that they're just jabbing into your eye. It's a really weird practice. It's like someone's torturing you to benefit you. Come to think of it, I think that's what the majority of hospital experiences are like. It is like torture, but you know it's helping. Hallelujah, the pressure was low, I was really happy. I went home with a big smile on my face that day, and everything's on track, everything's as it should be, quite normal, which again, I'm never told that I'm quite normal, so that was a turn up for the book, hooray! Just got to keep hoping that it's gonna stay like that now, so fingers crossed! I know my last video was full of some quite gory images of me looking like an albino bunny with red eyes. One thing that I've learnt in life is that people respond a lot better to visual reality than they do to just an idea or you telling them about something. It's kind of like when you're a child and you fall over and you're in shock about it and you don't cry for a little while, but then if you look down and you see a big gash on your knee or something like that, all of a sudden it hits home, and the reality of what you can see, this is really ironic. The sight of the blood and the fact that your body has been damaged in some way makes you realise the importance of it and the meaning behind what's happened to you. I always remember when I was young, I used to think, I really hope I get a bruise for this, because if I fall over and I don't get a bruise, no one's going to believe that it hurt. I've never been a huge fan of the phrase seeing is believing, because I think that makes me one of the most cynical people in the world. It is true though to a certain extent, because if you see something it just hits home so much more. When I was at school they came up with this way of you telling your teachers that you have a disability. You would get given letters to give to them. You wouldn't have to have an awkward conversation, you'd just pass it over and they would know, and there would just be a mutual understanding between you. That's great, that's a really good idea, but the only trouble with it is that people forget very easily. I didn't help because I never wanted to make a big deal of my eyes, and I just kind of went along like, oh, I'm fine, don't worry, I can see. No, I don't know what you're doing, I have no idea. Computer classes were always the worst because people don't seem to get the message that even though you're sitting like an inch away from the screen, they still think you can see their screen on a big overhead thing miles away from you to be able to copy what they're doing. I was completely lost. I mean, I was more than lost. I was abandoned in a sea of HTML. We had a presentation at the end and I basically struggled through the whole semester, like just trying to catch up and get people to help me and do things backdoor way. I stood up and obviously I was struggling and finding it really hard and looking really closely at the screen, and only at that point did my teacher realise, wow, she must have found this really difficult the whole time. Somehow I managed to get a really good grade for that class, but I'm not sure, it might just have been because he felt sorry for me. I'm blind all the time. People forget that when you tell them something like, I can't see very well, or just some problem that you may have been born with that's like a lifelong problem, it's not just there for the amount of time that you're talking to them about it, it's there all the time. You are constantly having to find ways around things, and it's possible to do. I'm not saying that it's something that stops you doing anything, because it's definitely not in my experience, but it is something that you have to take into account. It's almost like unless you're talking about it all the time, it's just not there anymore. I just need a tattoo on my head or a t-shirt saying, I'm still blind. I should have just come in every morning and just said, hi, still can't see. Just to remind you, still, the eye's still not so good. You know, I'm a reasonable person though, and I know how easy it is to forget, and I've never been angry at anyone for it not being in their mind, at the forefront of their mind all the time. I'm not quite that egotistical. Not quite that egotistical. Close. The main thing it teaches me though is to put yourself in other people's position. It's a real talent to be able to have your own unique perspective on the world and be able to see the full picture and know what you want out of life. But it's even more of a gift to be able to see the world through somebody else's eyes. I know it would be a significant cut for most of you to see it through mine, but it's a metaphor, okay? It's a metaphor, guys. From really trivial problems where someone might be complaining about something and you just think, oh, just shut up and just stop going on about your boyfriend, I don't care. To really big, important problems that people face in their life. I think what you find is, if you put yourself in that position, with all the factors that that person is facing, it probably would be a big deal to you, just because you don't have to think about any of these things that that person is going through. It doesn't make it less relevant to that person. It's not always easy to understand all the things that someone's going through or the way that someone feels about something. But ask them, talk to them. It's all just the luck of the draw. Just as easily as you could be in the situation that you're in right now, you could equally be in the situation that I'm in, or in the situation that anyone else that you know is in. I think what it comes down to at the end of the day is that we're all human beings. At our essence and at our very centre, we're all exactly the same. We're all just living slightly different lives and in different situations. But if we can see that similarity between us, it'll bring us closer together and it'll help us help each other and understand ourselves even more. Often it's other people's problems that put our own into perspective for us, and we realise that actually we have much more than we thought we did. Sometimes you just have to accept that you'll never truly be able to fix something for someone, and that they will be blind all the time. In that situation, the best thing you can do is empathise with them. Talk to them, understand them, take the time to find out about what they're going through and how they feel about it. See the reality with your own eyes and realise that it's one that you could just as easily be living with every single day of your life. Most importantly, don't only consider that person's feelings when they're talking to you about their problems. I'm not the only one who keeps it all inside and pretends everything's okay when I'm actually freaking out and not knowing what to do. I think that's how the majority of people deal with difficulties. I, more than anyone, know that the more support and encouragement you can give someone, the smaller their problem becomes. It might still be there all the time, but as long as you are as well, that's all that matters.
Treasure of Perspective.